Welcome back to Daily Dose of Knowledge. If you're new here, subscribe and stay. Today we are asking a question that sounds philosophical but is actually deeply personal. Do you have free will? Not in an abstract sense. In the most direct sense possible. When you made the last major decision of your life, did you actually choose it? Or was it the inevitable result of your genetics, your upbringing, your neurochemistry, and every experience you have ever had? Because if everything you have ever done was always going to happen exactly the way it happened, then what does that mean for your life? What does it mean for your regrets? Your achievements? Your sense of who you are? This question has occupied philosophers for thousands of years. But in the last few decades, neuroscience has entered the debate. And what it found is deeply unsettling. Today we are going through all of it. The philosophy, the neuroscience, the psychology, and what it actually means for how you live. Let's start with the most famous experiment in this entire debate. In 1983, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet hooked participants up to an EEG to measure brain activity. He asked them to flick their wrist whenever they felt like it, and to note the exact moment they consciously decided to move. What he found shook the scientific community. The brain showed electrical activity, called the readiness potential, up to half a second before the person consciously decided to move. The brain had already initiated the action before the conscious mind was aware of choosing it. Read that again. Your brain decided before you did. Or more precisely, the conscious experience of deciding came after the neural process that caused the action had already begun. This finding has been replicated and expanded in the decades since. More recent studies using fMRI have shown that researchers can predict a person's decision up to 10 seconds before the person is consciously aware of making it. 10 seconds. Your brain knew what you were going to choose before you did. So what does this mean? Does it mean free will is completely an illusion? Not necessarily. And this is where it gets philosophically interesting. There are three main positions in this debate, and understanding all three changes how you see yourself. The first position is hard determinism. The view that everything that happens, including every thought, every decision, every action, is the inevitable result of prior causes. Your genes determined your brain. Your brain determined your thoughts. Your thoughts determined your actions. Going back further, the physical state of the universe at any given moment determines its state at every future moment. In this view, free will is completely impossible. Not just limited. Impossible. There was never any other way things could have gone. The second position is libertarian free will. Not political libertarianism, philosophical libertarianism. The view that humans genuinely have the ability to make choices that are not fully determined by prior causes. That there is something about conscious human agency that introduces genuine novelty into the causal chain. Some philosophers point to quantum indeterminacy. The fact that at the subatomic level events are genuinely random rather than determined. But most neuroscientists find this unsatisfying. Random is not the same as free. A decision made by quantum randomness is not a free choice, it is just an unpredictable one. The third position is compatibilism. And this is where most serious philosophers and scientists currently land. Compatibilism argues that free will and determinism are not actually in conflict. That free will does not require being outside the causal chain. It simply requires that your actions flow from your own desires, values, and reasoning rather than from external coercion or compulsion. In other words, when you make a decision that flows from who you genuinely are, what you genuinely value, and what you genuinely reason, that is free will. Even if that decision was in some sense determined by prior causes. The compatibilist says the question is not whether your choices have causes. Everything has causes. The question is what kind of causes. Are your actions caused by you, your values, your character, your reasoning? Or are they caused by something external overriding you? If they come from you, even a you that was shaped by factors outside your control, that is a meaningful form of freedom. Now here is where the psychology becomes fascinating. Regardless of which philosophical position is correct, what you believe about free will has profound measurable effects on your behavior. Psychologists Kathleen Voss and Jonathan Schooler conducted a landmark study in 2008. They gave one group of participants a passage arguing that free will is an illusion and another group a neutral passage. Then they gave both groups an opportunity to cheat on a test. The group that had read the anti-free will passage cheated significantly more. This was not a small effect. Undermining belief in free will measurably reduced ethical behavior. Subsequent research has replicated this. Weakening free will belief increases aggression, reduces helpfulness, reduces job performance, and increases dishonesty. Why? Because the story you tell yourself about your own agency directly shapes how you act. If you believe your choices don't matter, if you believe you are just executing a biological program, you stop trying to be the author of your own story, and that has real consequences for your actual life. Now here is something even more interesting. The psychological research on this cuts both ways. Believing too strongly in a certain kind of free will also has a dark side. When people believe their outcomes are entirely the result of their free choices, they become less compassionate toward others who are struggling. If everyone is completely free, then poverty is a choice. Addiction is a choice. Mental illness is a choice. This is the cruelty that can live inside an unexamined belief in absolute free will. The research suggests the most psychologically healthy and socially beneficial belief is somewhere in the middle. Enough agency to take responsibility for your choices and your direction. Enough humility about causation to maintain compassion for yourself and others. Now let's bring this to the question that actually matters. How should you live given all of this? The first thing this debate gives you is the dissolution of certain regrets. If the person you were 10 years ago made decisions that were shaped by everything that had happened to them up to that point, by their neurobiology, their experiences, their understanding at the time, can you really condemn that person with the understanding you have now? They did not have what you have now. They could not have chosen differently given who they were. And who they were was largely not their choice. This is not an excuse for future behavior. It is a foundation for genuine self-compassion about the past. The second thing it gives you is a more honest understanding of other people. The person who hurt you was also a product of forces largely outside their control. Their childhood, their neurology, their accumulated experiences, their model of the world at the time. This does not mean you have to excuse the harm. It means you can understand it. And understanding it removes the power it has over you. The third thing, and this is the most important one, is this. Even if your choices are determined by prior causes, you are one of those causes. Your values are a cause. Your reasoning is a cause. Your character is a cause. The fact that your character was shaped by things outside your control does not make it less yours. You are the kind of cause that thinks, that reflects, that chooses based on reasons. And in a determined universe, being that kind of cause is the only freedom there is. And it is enough. It is enough to make your choices matter. It is enough to make your relationships real. It is enough to make your life genuinely yours. The debate about free will does not end here. It has been going for thousands of years and will continue. But the practical conclusion is clear. Act as if your choices matter. Because they do, to you, to the people around you, to the person you are becoming. The question of whether free will is ultimately real is a question for philosophers. The question of whether you are going to be the most conscious and deliberate author of your life that you can possibly be, that question is entirely yours. That is your daily dose of knowledge for today. Drop a comment and tell me, do you believe you have free will? And has this video changed your answer at all? Share this with someone who is wrestling with this question. Subscribe because we are just getting started. I'll see you in the next one.